In the last episode, we saw Jia dragging Jin into the Ferris wheel and telling him that she will play a game of truth with him until he tells everything to her. Jin got confused, asking, "What's the game of truth?" Looking at Jin, Jia explained, "You have to answer truthfully to what the other person asks. If you couldn't answer, there would be a penalty for you. Drinking is a good penalty, but for tonight, we can just do head flicks. If you lie, the game would end." Jin immediately brought his head close to Jia. Looking at his sudden reaction, Jia got confused why Jin is so obediently agreeing already for the head flick. Then an unexpected memory of the head flick surfaced in her mind. She shouted at Jin, hey, stop thinking weird things. I am really going to hit you this time. If you can't answer, I am not letting you off easy." Jin immediately said, "Hitting is fine, but do we really have to play this game? That game really makes people feel stupid. It makes people who are sincere and honest seem like the foolish ones." Jia sighed, "I don't know who made you think that way, but I would never lie during the truth game. I had a bad experience of sorts in the past. If you are that curious, you can find out by asking me in the game." She smiled and continued, "Anyway, I don't know anything about you, but I won't be lying." Jin was still hesitant to play. But Jia immediately said, "So to be fair, let's decide with rock paper scissors who will go first." When they shot, Jia won the round and asked, "Hey, do you like me, right?" Jin got flustered, asking, "What did you say?" Jia teased him, "Don't act like you couldn't hear me. I know you heard." "Okay, the countdown starts now." After the countdown, the sound of Jin's shouting came, and Jia called Jin a baby on his shouting on a petty head flick. Jin, with his head down, said, "Then it's my turn now. I'll ask you the same, Jia. Do you like me?" Jia immediately said, "I don't hate you." Hearing that, Jin was a little confused about what Jia actually meant. Jia simply again said, "I don't hate you." Jin still couldn't understand and stared at her in confusion. Looking at his reaction, Jia asked, "Why? Did you have a problem?" Jin finally said, "Wait, if you don't hate me." Jia stopped him in the middle and said, "Hey, only one question at a time. It's my turn now." She continued, "Then, I could taste cucumbers that day when we fell asleep while watching a movie together. On my lips, I could taste cucumbers which I never ate. As you know, I don't like cucumbers, and after that day, you blatantly started to avoid me. So that's my question for you. When I was asleep, did you do something to my lips? If you want to hear directly, then that day, did you kiss me on the lip?" Jin just went silent like he couldn't come up with any words. Jia again asked him with a grin, "Did you kiss or not?" "And there's no use in pleading the fifth. Until I hear a proper answer from you, Mincheol, we'll just keep going around and around." Jin immediately said, "I didn't." Jia sarcastically said, "Okay, if that's your answer, we'll wrap up episode 1 of Han Jia's Game of Truth here. Thanks for participating." Jin nervously asked, "Why?" Jia nonchalantly said, "What do you mean by why? I told you already, if a player lied, the game ends there. Well, if you insist you are telling the truth, we can say that it's the truth. I guess that day I must have gone crazy and eaten a cucumber in my sleep, and nothing happened between us in particular." Jin suddenly shouted, "I didn't kiss your lips. It wasn't on your lips. I am not lying, just like you told me you don't have any intention of lying. I don't plan on lying either. Where I actually kissed you." He pointed the finger at Jia's forehead and continued, "It was here." Jia, with disappointment, asked, "My forehead? Why?" Jin explained, "I wasn't planning to do that. That wasn't my intention. But you were asleep, and I knew I shouldn't do it, but for some reason, as I kept looking at your face, without realizing it happened. So sorry." Jia smiled, "Wait, I wasn't bringing this up to get an apology out of you." She annoyingly continued, "So what you are saying now is because of my forehead, a simple forehead kiss, we have been going through all this trouble?" Jin again said, "Sorry." Jia again shouted, "No, I am not trying to scold you for it." What was Jia expecting? There's no way that someone as stubborn as Mincheol would cross a line. But even a kiss on the forehead could have some meaning. It feels like he put in some effort. That's what Jia was thinking about, but why did she feel so disappointed? Was it that Jia wanted more? But she finally decided to calm her thoughts because she concluded that Jin and she herself aren't in that kind of relationship. Jin again said, "Jia, I am sorry, and this apology is not for what I did, but this apology is for what I'll be doing to you starting now." Jia was so confused about what Jin was saying, she just stared at him. Jin slowly came near to Jia. There were fireworks blowing outside in the sky. The beautiful scene just lit up Jia's eyes, and Jin kissed Jia under the beautifully lit up sky. It was like flowers bloomed before Jia's eyes, flowers made of flames. Late at night, scattered fireworks were everywhere with rushing water. And inside the shaking ride, it was the first time Mincheol took the first step and gave Jia a kiss. The kiss that Jin Mincheol gave Jia somehow tasted bitter to her. It was bitter because Jin ate cucumbers while drinking. Of all the things he could have eaten, why cucumbers, she couldn't understand. Jia didn't want to know what Jin had eaten for dinner in this kind of way. That's why Jia pulled away from Jin, and before she could say anything, Jin fell on Jia's shoulders. Jia tried to wake him up, but he just lost all consciousness because of the alcohol. After a while, the Ferris wheel's cart came down, and when it came down, two workers noticed something in the cart. It was Jia's hand on the window, sliding slowly. Looking at that scene, the workers got confused, wondering what was happening in the cart. But suddenly, they saw Jia's face sticking to the window, looking like a seal. After that, they decided to call this event the first drunken fiasco. As a result, they added an additional clause to their contract. Jin was a little nervous while writing the new clause, so Jia asked him, "What happened? If you have a problem, speak now." Jin said, "I don't have a problem." Then Jia immediately replied, "Then keep writing." The new clause they mutually decided on was, no kissing after eating cucumbers. While Jin was going to the office, he stopped at the door and said, "Jia, is it really bad?" Jia asked, "Why? Is there any issue with that?" Jin said, "No, not an issue. I just thought you'd be more upset." "So then, Jia, if I can't kiss you after eating cucumbers, then if I haven't eaten a cucumber?" Jia immediately embarrassingly shouted, "Just go to work already, don't sit around asking for permission on every little thing." At the office, Jin apologized to Choi for how he behaved at the restaurant yesterday. Choi said, "Oh no, it's fine. It happens, although I didn't expect it to happen to you." Jin was so happy thinking about yesterday. But Choi got irritated with Jin's constant smile and thought, when will Jin leave him alone? Jia was cleaning at home, also thinking about the incident that happened yesterday. In the midst of that thinking, a cat climbed on Jia's back and started playing with her. Suddenly, Jia's phone rang. When she picked it up, it was a notification from some app. When she opened it, she just couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was her bought stocks that suddenly started falling by a hasty amount of percentages. To be honest, Jia was not just an unemployed freelancer. She was a freelancer who didn't need to work. With just novel royalties and stocks, Jia received a monthly payment that took care of her living expenses. That's right, Jia was the grasshopper with lots of money. She was a high-tier freelancer. Jia was angry when she saw that her stocks had dropped by -9.28%, but she decided to wait it out because her current revenue was still very high. However, the situation took a turn for the worse 4 days later when the stocks fell to -18.18%. Jin couldn't understand why Jia was so disappointed, so he came to ask her about it, but Jia brushed him off, saying it was nothing. She couldn't understand how the stocks had fallen so much without any reason. At that moment, a crazy idea crossed her mind, getting a divorce and splitting the property from Jin. She was so irritated that she couldn't control her emotions, but somehow she gathered the courage and sold the stocks she was holding. The next morning, when Jia saw her phone, she smiled. Suddenly, her smile turned into rage because the stocks went up by 12.3% after Jia sold them. At that time, Jia shouted so many swear words that obviously cannot be shown or repeated. Hearing Jia's shouting, Jin came from behind and asked her, "What's wrong, Jia?" Jia said, "Nothing's wrong. I am going out, I'll be right back." Jia sat in a park thinking that if you make a living off investments, it's common to experience things like this. So, if it goes up sometimes, it also comes down, just like life. When Jia watched the numbers going up and down, she felt like she would be losing sight of something, like a 20% drop and a 10% raise, isn't it a 10% sale of the original price? Jia insanely thought, doesn't they say some risks provide opportunity? That's why she decided to buy the stocks again and take the risk. However, Jia bought the stocks at the most expensive and sold them at the cheapest price. At the gym, Jia was still looking at her phone, and her current revenue was below the original investment. Seeing her focused on her phone, Jin asked Jia if she had been playing a new game recently. Jia asked, "What are you saying? What do you mean by game?" Jin amusingly said, "Recently, the time you spend on the phone has increased, so I thought maybe you started a new game." Jean also asked her, Jia, if it's okay, I was wondering if I could also play because I also like games quite a bit. Jia couldn't decide whether to tell Jean the truth or not because, according to her, this was the reason why their relationship could be maintained after all. The fourth clause clearly stated that. So, Jia decided not to say anything. She felt sorry that she made Jean worried about her, but at the same time, she didn't want to be a needless bother. So, she smiled and said, there's nothing wrong, there's just been a drama that I've really been into. Jia's current revenue was very serious. She couldn't even put her phone down when she wanted to, the numbers were crashing so hard. Jia couldn't decide whether to sell again or not because she thought, what if when she sells, the prices go up again? So, Jia decided that she would leave the market to do its own thing and she deleted the stock market app, believing that it would go up again in a few days. After that day, long story short, Jia should have maybe sold it all on that day. The investment was falling day after day, and the continuation of shock and surprise. Jia's days where she would get pocket money just by breathing were over now. Han Jia, a freelancer who doesn't work, from today, she is a job seeker. Suddenly, Jean came near Jia with a plate of fruits and asked, Jia, can we discuss something really quick? Jia was nervous, thinking about what Jean must have wanted to discuss with that serious expression on his face. She hoped that it should not be so bad because she already had a lot on her plate. Jean, with a serious expression, finally broke the silence and said, Jia, is there somebody else you like? Jia couldn't believe what she just heard, and she shouted irritably, what do you mean by somebody that I like? Jean, with a ferocious look, said, well, it's that I watched a video about married couples on YouTube, and it said that if your partner's actions seem to deviate from usual, they probably have another lover. He explained the conditions that the channel said, and Jia checked all the boxes in that scenario. He also added that, Jia, they also said if a partner starts lying, it's a big hint. When Jia asked about what lie he was referring to, Jean said, when you said you were watching a drama at the gym. Jia, you may not be aware, but you have certain habits, like when you discover something fun, you tend to let other people know about it. But regarding the drama you watched, you didn't even tell me its title. Jia could understand why Jean would misunderstand in such a situation. That's why Jia decided to tell him the truth, and she whispered the real amount that she lost until now in the last few days. Jean couldn't believe that Jia lost that much amount. Looking at Jin's expression, Jia said, anyway, that's the reason why I have been so restless lately. It's the source of my pocket money and living expenses. I don't want to worry about it, so I shut my mouth. But I guess none of it matters now, so I am sorry for worrying you. Jean looked at Jia and said, Jia, if all your savings are gone, then your living expenses are gone. So, are you fine? Jia replied, it's fine. Money is ephemeral in nature, and as long as I am able, I can make it back. But in reality, it's actually not fine. Just how many people in this world would be fine after losing that much money? Still, regardless of Jia's financial losses and how pathetic she seems for losing money in stocks, she didn't want Mincheol to have that sort of misunderstanding. After a few minutes of hesitation, Jean finally spoke up, if you are fine with it, I could help you with life expenses. Hearing that, Jia immediately refused, stop. One's money problems are their own to fix. I knew you'd be like this, that's why I didn't tell you. Money handling should be thorough among family. Jean still tried to convince her to take the money, but Jia said, I appreciate your sincerity, but this simply has to do with my pride. I promised myself when I left home that I should do my part with my own power. I guess I am proud of the fact that I have never had to beg for any major help from someone. Well, I am not sure you'd believe me since I am the one crashing at your place still. Jean suddenly held Jia's face and looked into her eyes, Jia, I believe in you. I have never seen you as an untrustworthy person before, not even once. Saying that, he grabbed Jia's ears. Jia smacked on Jin's forehead, shouting, hey, what was that? Why'd you grab my ears like that? Jean said, don't you remember? It was a trend when we were younger. You'd grab my ears and yell energy injection, then say that we were sharing energy. Jia, you don't want it, even if I can't give you my financial support. I'd like to at least cheer you on. Is that okay? Jia irritably grinned and walked into her room after giving a beautiful red spot on Jin's back. In her room, Jia thought it was just something Jia did without much thought when she was younger. But this energy injection, it's way more stimulating than she remembered. 1 week later, when Jia was going out, Jean asked, another interview? Jia said, yup, 2 of them. Jean called Jia's name and with a big smile on his face said, Jia, have a safe trip. Jia also smiled and with the most beautiful cherished smile responded, I will. Honestly speaking, up till now, Jia felt that she was far too lucky, even by normal standards, graduation, employment, and even marriage. Once she got her act together, the ideal life of a 32-year-old that always seemed like a far-fetched dream couldn't simply stay as one forever, such is reality. As such, the life of 32-year-old worker Han Jia begins. But suddenly, a truck started heading towards Jia when she was crossing a road, and Jia just stopped in disbelief looking at that. Once upon a time, in a rural village within the mountains, an honest lumberjack lived with a maiden who lost her shroud of flight and was unable to return to the land of the skies. One day, that maiden came near the lumberjack and said, Husband, while cleaning the house, I found the shroud of flight I lost. It's pretty, right? Really, it's always in the last place you expect. Who would have thought that it'd be in the closet of our bedroom? Who would have put it there? Yet the one who hid the shroud was the lumberjack. According to legend, maidens are unable to return to the land of skies once they lose their shroud and are forced to live in the world of humans. However, it appears the maiden was already aware of the truth from the very beginning. Still, she teased her husband, I sure do wonder how it ended up there. Could it be that you hid it in there because you wanted to be with me and you didn't want to let me go back? The husband finally spoke, You are right, my dear wife. I am very sorry. I have committed a grave sin using my love for you as an excuse. Please don't forgive me. The wife said, If you can grant one wish of mine, then there's no reason for me not to forgive you. She removed his glasses and teased him, No glasses when you are with me from now on. She threw the glasses in the water and said, Husband Jean, why are you so dense? I am telling you that I don't like your glasses. Forget about my shroud and stuff. Honestly, I have no thoughts of going back, as long as you don't wear them. She grabbed Jin's face with her gentle hands and said, Wait, I will prove it to you. She smiled, and as she was about to kiss him, suddenly someone popped up and shouted, Ha ha ha, I am the god of the mountain, have surfaced to return your lost glasses. So, were the glasses you dropped gold or silver? Jia angrily shouted, None of them. When Jia looked around, she saw herself on the bed surrounded by a doctor. Jia's head was aching, thinking, did she just dream all that happened or what? Jia called her mother and told everything about the accident she went through. Her mother asked about her well-being, and she told her that she is fine now, so not to worry. She also said, The hospital told me to let a guardian know that I was involved in a minor accident, so sorry for making you worry. Jia's mother said, It's a relief that you aren't hurt, but what did your husband say? Didn't they tell you to contact a guardian? Your guardian is your husband now, isn't he? Jia was so confused about what her mother was saying, so she asked, Aren't you my guardian, Mom? Jia's mother irritatingly said, you little. The guardian that your doctor was referring to is a person who can come to your assistance right away. You are supposed to contact your husband before your mom in this situation. Got it? After the call, Jia immediately searched the word guardian and finally got to know that the guardian doesn't necessarily refer to a parent. Suddenly, someone shouted Jia's name out loud. It was Jia and Mincheol, who looked tired and someone like he had just seen a ghost. He asked her, Jia, are you alright? Jia was shocked to see him there and asked, Jia and Mincheol, how did you know? Jin said, My mother-in-law told me. Jin immediately looked around and saw a doctor was talking to someone. He went to that guy and with a furious expression asked, Was it you? Are you the one who hurt my wife? Jia was shocked to see that even Jia and Mincheol can make that sort of expression. The driver immediately started apologizing for what he did. And Jia also calmed Jin from behind, saying that she is fine. The doctor also calmed Jin down and told him to look at the condition of his family member first. Family, usually centering around a married couple and those who have a relationship to them. So that's right, Jin and Jia are family. Worrying for each other when they are hurt, supporting each other when they are feeling down, and feeling happy for them when they are happy and feeling sad for them when they are sad. A relationship where such things are natural. Afterwards, Jia sent Jin back to his office. Jin insisted on being by her side, but Jia really was fine. She managed to settle things with the driver. Honestly, Jia would have been fine if Jin stayed by her side a little longer, but she made him worried once again, and just when she promised herself not to make him too much. She gathered her thoughts and focused on the matters at hand. For now, she needs to focus on her work and start with what she is capable of finishing. It was far too late to go for the interview now, and her current goal is to make her money back. She decided that she should probably look for a part-time job nearby. Jia didn't notice, but thinking all that she just crossed paths with Na Yang, the former producer she knew. But Na Yang noticed Jia and stopped with a grin on his face.